At Let's Tell Their Story, we'd like to advise that some content may contain rape, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child abduction, and murder. Not all content is suitable for all audiences. Please be advised while listening. Thank you.
Hi guys, make the sound here, or you guys see me, I guess. Let's tell the story. He's finally getting a face to go with their voice. This is officially the first video to go with the podcast. I know a lot of other creators, they will do like the YouTube version of the channel that they do first, and then they'll go into the podcast. However, I wasn't comfortable with just showing my face off right away. So I figured a little over a year in that now I'm comfortable in front of the camera, since all of my recordings previous are done in video form on my end and then sent to my editor, and then that's when you guys get the voice after it's been edited. Now it's time to put a face with your voice. Let me say to you guys, I apologize for the microphone and the little rubber band here. It's only because the microphone I have and my arm stand does not connect correctly, but with a little bit of ingenuity, I've got it working, and hopefully you guys can hear me speak clear. As many of you already know, I do a missing person first out of the state that the case that I will be covering is from. And since it is June, and I know we're towards the end of June, and I've been kind of slacking a little bit, but it's been a pretty hectic last couple of weeks, and just have not had time to send any not information, but any, I haven't had any time to sit down and record. I apologize. So let's get into, what I was getting at was it's June, it's Pride Month, and not only does our case involve someone from the LGBTQ community, but our missing person also does. So let's jump right into this, and we will go and start with our missing person. Our missing person this week is Corbin Daniel Pemberton. They called their family on 4/1/2024 at 2 p.m. from the Trader Joe's at 4210 Long Beach, California, or Long Beach Boulevard, Long Beach, and they haven't been heard from since. Corbin is currently experiencing homelessness, and Corbin is also believed to be on foot. Law enforcement has had contact with Corbin in Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. Corbin also may identify as a female. So some demographics on Corbin. Corbin is a biological 25-year-old male who is approximately 5'8" to 5'9" inches, weighs between 130 and 140 pounds. Some distinctive markings for Corbin is they have an amputated, missing right index finger, a scar on their throat and neck area, a tattoo of the ace of spades on their left shoulder, and a pot leaf tattoo on their left chest area. If you have any information on Corbin's whereabouts, please contact the Long Beach Police Department at 562-570-7260, case number 42001-738. 5. Hopefully you can find Corbin. Now on to today's case. We are going to be discussing Mitrice Richardson. She was a 24-year-old African-American woman that was just naturally, she was compassionate and she loved to stay busy. She was a store clerk and a dancer at an LGBTQIA plus club. She also was in an internship in her field of study of psychology. She loved sunflowers and she was closest with her grandmother. She had high hopes and she was an ambitious student. She was determined to make every dream she had come true. So when her behavior started becoming a little more erratic, her family got really concerned, and then when she disappeared, her family not just concerned, but they were very fearful on what could have happened to her. The fall of 2009, Mitrice and her girlfriend had broke up, her girlfriend Tess. Now, Mitrice had suffered from the mental illness of bipolar disorder for a good portion of her life, and at the time of Mitrice's disappearance, it seemed like she didn't really have that under control anymore. Otherwise, she was always an outgoing and very responsible young woman, and this was about the time she started sending some strange texts, and she also posted some very bizarre posts on her social media. In September of 2009, the day that Mitrice disappeared, or the night that Mitrice disappeared, earlier that afternoon, she had sent her mother a text, and her mother's name is Mitrice, and her father's name is Michael. Mitrice was raised by her mother, Mitrice, and her stepfather, but Mitrice had sent her mother a text on September 16th that said, "Watch the news today, it's going to shock the hell out of you." She had also posted on her Facebook page that, quote, "I just want to sleep, LOL, but you know me and my crazy ideas. Let's see where they take me." Now, these crazy ideas you're about, oh, where's the story gonna go? It ended up being a fairly long story, but it's worth getting my thesis story renewed again. We're in 2024, and there still isn't really any answers. There's answers without answers, and there's no convictions have been made. Whether this was foul play or not is yet to be determined. I have my own theories, and I'll just keep those as my own theories. You'll probably be able to figure out while I'm talking and whatnot what my theories are, but I'll let you judge and make your own assumptions. That evening of the 16th of September, Mitrice actually ended up in Rock Hills, California, at a diner restaurant called Jeffrey's, and she was found going through one of the staff cars one of the cars of the staff at Jeffrey's, and she was going through the staff member's CD collection, and once one of the managers got a minute, they went out to see what she was doing, and she was like, "I'm not really doing anything." Her behavior seemed a little bizarre to this manager to begin with, and eventually she goes into the restaurant, and she sits down and orders a meal and an alcoholic beverage. She actually orders a Kobe steak and an ocean breeze cocktail. I've never had an ocean breeze cocktail. It does sound good. Um, and at the time, she was telling a few people that she was from Mars and that she was here to avenge Michael Jackson's death. And not only did she tell these few people, but while she was in Jeffries, she sat down with a table of 7. Sorry about that. My husband decided to make a little justice to me. Yeah, I didn't see he was there for about 2 minutes, apparently. So, back into the she sat down with a table of 7 that were already done. They had already had their food and whatnot, and she was acting completely off. I'm sure if somebody was acting off and sat next to me too, I'd probably say yes. Staring at the waiter or the waitress and saying, like, with my eyes saying, can you do something about this? Without saying it. However, they seemed to mind, but they didn't seem to mind, because they never once asked her to actually leave. And so, the table of 7, they got up to pay their bill. And nobody's really sure what Mitrice was thinking. Oh, Mitrice was thinking at the time, but when she was presented with her bill, she looked at the waitstaff and said she couldn't pay it. Her bill came to a total of $89. And she told them, I can't pay this. So they had her call her grandmother to cover the bill at the diner for her dinner. Well, her grandma had no problem paying this. However, what the situation was that they needed a fax signature of my Mitrice's grandmother, and the grandmother didn't have a fax machine. And honestly, how many of us in 2009 would have had a fax machine? I mean, honestly, from what I'm understanding on the views of my listeners, a lot of either you guys were babies in 2009 or not even close to being 18 yet. I mean, there's a few of you that will remember 2009 when we were adults with kids, and maybe even kids with adults. I know one of my listeners for sure had a kid with an adult that was 29 in 2009 because my mom used to be validated. So she isn't able to pay the bill, and grandma doesn't have a fax machine to send a copied signature. So Jeffrey's restaurant, they make a phone call to 911, and they explain that there is a black woman that is acting like she's on drugs and she's refusing to pay her bill. It's not so much she's refusing to pay her bill, she was refusing because she doesn't have the funds to pay it, and there's no saying that she was on any sort of drug, or if she was or wasn't on a drug. So there's 3 male officers from the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Department that show up at Jeffries. And this is they had 9 witnesses that pretty much told the officers about Mitrice's behavior. And at 10 to 10 that evening, they take Mitrice into custody. They book her on possession of marijuana, which they had found in her car. I mean, she didn't have much of the marijuana on her, but it was enough to book her, and what is known as defrauding an innkeeper, basically not willing to pay your dining bill. So when Mitrice is booked, her mother, Mitrice, is notified of Mitrice's arrest, and Mitrice tells them if she needs to, if like Mitrice is gonna be released tonight, she has no problem that night. She had no problem coming to get her, but if they were gonna keep her overnight, that she'd be there first thing in the morning to get her daughter. And she explained to the deputies that Mitrice was not familiar with the area, and that with them impounding her car and her not being released until the next morning, which he was informed that was what was going to happen. That Mitrice wasn't going to be released until the morning. So the following morning, the chief called the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and the chief was informed that Mitrice was released throughout the night. She was released around 20 to 1 in that morning. But Mitrice was released with none of the belongings. She had no phone. She had no identification. She didn't have her vehicle, her purse, nothing. She was basically kicked outside to the curb. Um, they did happen to say that she was allowed to stay in the lobby, and an employee of the sheriff's department stated that Mitrice declined to stay in the lobby, but she was never even offered a chance to call the chief to come get her. And the chief offered, which the chief made it very clear when she called that she would come get Mitrice because she was not familiar with the area. So around between 5 and 6, the chief calls the sheriff's department and finds out that Mitrice was released. And she was told the dispatcher, I was told she wasn't going to be released for the morning, and I said I would come get her. And she made it very clear that Mitrice was not familiar with the area, and she made a comment that not only does she regret ever staying, but she probably, and she said, when I watched a ID documentary on this, I do not remember the name of the show that I watched. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wish I could remember the name of the show, because I'd love to see the show again. But I've never seen it during daylight hours. I've only seen it once in the middle of the night, and I cannot remember the name of the show. I do remember the ID channel. And Mitrice had made a comment which she goes, well, my daughter's not familiar with the area. I don't want to get a call saying that that they found her body without her head. Mitrice probably, well, she does. She doesn't know what caused her to say that, and I'm sure as a mother myself, she will always regret ever saying those words. However, sometimes our own motherly instincts can be very validating, and it sucks when that happens. Around 6:30 that morning, on the 17th of September, a former news anchor from the KTLA channel calls and claims to have spotted Mitrice in his backyard. or so he calls the sheriff, the Rockville station, lets them know, and he basically says that there's a slim black woman with afro hair in his backyard. He opens the window, yells out, "Are you okay?" And the alleged Mitrice sighting here, states that she yells back, "Just rested." So Mr. Smith, by the time he goes and puts some clothes on, because it is 6:30 in the morning, he goes and puts some clothes on, and by the time he gets outside to investigate what's going on, the woman has disappeared. And he was assumed that the woman in his backyard had disappeared back into the mountains that were back behind his home. There are a few more unconfirmed sightings of Mitrice. Around 7:30 that morning, there was a alleged sighting of her walking down Malibu Canyon Road. And there's a few more alleged sightings, but not that day. They're a little further down, and we'll get into those later. Right now, within 2 weeks of Mitrice's release from the station and her complete disappearance, there was a $10,000 reward for Mitrice's disappearance, and it was approved by the Board of Supervisors. So I wasn't aware that these kind of rewards actually have an expiration on them, and that reward was to expire December 15th of 2009. When December 15th came around, that $10,000 reward deadline was extended to June of 2010. And then on January 9th, there's finally an Aaron Brown search. And this Aaron Brown search is in the Malibu Creek State Area Park. And I'm not familiar with California parks or anything. I've been to California once, and that was in San Diego to watch my son graduate from the Marines. Otherwise, I'm just a Midwestern girl out of Wisconsin trying to do her thing, and I'm going to do my best on what areas here, but I have no idea where the Malibu Creek State Park is. So the 9th of January 2010, they do an Aaron Brown search of these parks, and the search teams are with police helicopters, horses, and even search dogs. And they search the whole area. They include the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, but nothing was found in the area. In March of 2010, Mitrice's parents finally speak out about the search for Mitrice around the 6-month mark, and basically they have this press conference to state that she was last seen leaving the sheriff's station. And they really do criticize the authorities for their search efforts because they really didn't do anything to search for Mitrice that night or that morning. When Mitrice or Latif had called on going to pick Mitrice up that morning, she had asked that dispatcher how long before a person can be considered a missing person can be reported. And she's told, well, probably about 24 hours. Now, that is not true. That is, you can report a missing person 2 hours after you're missing, even as long as it's out of character for them. And all of this is out of character for Mitrice. Mitrice is already acting out of character. And when Lakeith and Michael have this press conference and they criticize the authorities' search efforts for their daughters, Lakeith basically says that they're slow moving on their search efforts, and she believes that local politicians are ignoring her and Michael's pleas for help. And it does seem like that, because they had tried getting a hold to the Los Angeles County Hall of Administration, and they wanted to get drones out to search the Malibu Canyon area, and they never got a call back in response. So, yeah, I kind of agree with Lakeith on the search efforts were crap. By the end of March of 2010, Mitrice's family was so fed up with the law enforcement that the family members, friends of Lakeith, and community members, they all gather together and they do their own search. And they search across the Los Angeles area for Mitrice, and those areas included Skid Row, Malibu. I'm going to do my best to pronounce these two: Calabasas and Agora, Santa Monica, and Hollywood. And in their search, they didn't find anything. They didn't find any kind of thing whatsoever. Now, come May of 2010, they wanted a U.S. representative had requested that the Department of Justice review the handling of Mitrice's case, and they wanted a review because they believed that Mitrice's civil rights were violated when she was released from the jail. Because she was released in the middle of the night. She was released without her cell phone, her car, or her purse the night that she disappeared. And I have a spider crawling down. Sorry if anybody has a problem with that. I think it's gone. That was creepy. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know spiders, but my office is in a basement, so what do I expect? Spiders. Where was I at? Oh, so that U.S. representative had wanted to review, and then when the FBI spokesperson gets back to them, they basically said that there wasn't enough information to lead to the FBI or the Department of Justice to get involved at the time. And it does take a while before either one of them do get involved. In June of 2010, that $10,000 reward, and I'm going to be bringing that up a couple of times, and it's not really any reason for it. I just think it's important to establish that these rewards do expire, and they have to be renewed, and it was expired in June of 2010, and then it was reestablished July 13th of 2010. Now, remember earlier when I was saying how there was um, unconfirmed sightings of Mitrice? Or almost a year later, at 3 o'clock in the morning, on July 20, or June of 2010, a woman that is spotted to be believed it was Mitrice was spotted at a Las Vegas hotel by actually a former high school friend of Mitrice's, and this friend of Mitrice's basically goes up, approaches this woman, and says hi. This woman kind of looks and has a surprised look on her face, and she hightails it out of it. Probably because it wasn't Mitrice. So that, in just my opinion, I'm just throwing it out there, my opinion is not Mitrice, that this gentleman or former high school friend of Mitrice was seen. Um, so it's not considered a verified sighting of her, but the Beverly Hills Police Department, or Los Angeles Police Department, felt it was a good enough uh, feeling to go and actually take a look to get information out there in the community of Las Vegas. And this wouldn't be the only time there's alleged sightings of Mitrice in Las Vegas. There were two more sightings of her in Las Vegas, and these sightings really got to Michael to the point, Mitrice's father, Michael, that he actually went to Las Vegas, and he thought he spotted her a couple times himself, only to basically turn around like it wasn't her. In July of 2010, Michael and Mitrice both they both filed lawsuits against the Los Angeles County. Michael's lawsuit was a violation of civil rights and a wrongful release, which, yes, it was a wrongful release because Mitrice said she'd come get her. Multiple times she told these deputies she'd come get her if she was going to be released for the night. And the violation of civil rights, obviously, is she was released into an area. One, she didn't know. Two, she was left without any transportation because they had impounded her car. Three, they didn't give her a cell phone or her sources of identification in it. And Mitrice's suit was more of a suit against the department for negligence and for wrongful death of her daughter. Now, at the time, Mitrice has not been located, and there is nothing stating that Mitrice has passed. And in the process of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department going to Las Vegas and getting their recognition of the case out in the area, there ended up being a total of 70 tips of potential sightings of Mitrice in Las Vegas. So this would explain why even Michael had gone to Las Vegas and thought he had seen her. In August of 2010, a park ranger was patrolling a part of Dark Canyon, which is approximately 7 miles away from Malibu Canyon, and that park ranger was actually looking for a spot that's known for illegal marijuana growth in the area, and this area is approximately 8 miles from the Lost Hills Station, where Mitrice was released from, and it's hard to access. There are no trails, and it's steep with overgrowth and jagged rocks. So while the park ranger is out there doing her thing, looking for this illegal marijuana growth area, he comes across a human skull. So, being actually probably one of the few people that's doing his job right, the park ranger calls the sheriff's office. And the Malibu Canyon, there's in a press conference was held to discuss the remains that are found. At the press conference, officials state that the remains appear to be those of a female, but they also stated that the woman's clothing was found at the scene with the remains. I don't know why they would throw that in there, where I think it was more okay. We have a lot of cases where clothing just either is missing altogether or it's scattered about. And then I actually have a couple of cases that I'm going to be coming across where there is going to be clothing that just disappears and years later still has never been recovered. And that was August 11th when the park ranger found the skeletal remains. By August 12th, there was again another press conference. I don't know if this is just because it's the Los Angeles area, and they've got access to all of these cameras and whatnot. I might just be my Midwestern Wisconsin ignorance, but there's a lot of press conferences with this case, and you would think by all the time these press conferences are going on, there'd be an answer somewhere. Um, However, with this particular press conference, they did identify those skeletal remains as Mitrice Richardson, and the sheriff, the Bapa from the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department, did not only say that it was confirmed to be Mitrice through her dental records, but he also had to add in there that there was no indication of a homicide. And then he also adds that her remains would be capable of telling us a story that would lead to that possibility. So he kind of contradicts himself. He says, one, that the remains don't show anything of a possible homicide, but he's also stating that her remains could state otherwise. Now, the Assistant Chief Coroner, Ed Winters, he deferred the cause of death pending a further investigation, and even though the authorities believe that there was no foul play involved in Mitrice's death at the time, I feel that the chief coroner, Mr. Ed Winters, thought there might be something else to this. As you notice, I didn't bring up the names of the detectives that arrested Mitrice the night of her disappearance and booked her. However, I did bring up the Los Angeles County Sheriff, Lee Baca. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's C-A-C-A, and I'm going with Baca. The reason I bring his name up is because the following on the 13th, and this probably has a lot to do with his speech or his press conference and how he contradicted himself. Mitrice's father goes public on the 13th of August, and he says that he wants the sheriff, Lee Baca, to take a polygraph examination or a lie detector test. Nobody really knows why, and there was, after that public request from Michael, there was no more further discussion about the request. So it is unknown whether Sheriff Lee Baca actually took a polygraph test or not. So the reason Assistant Chief Coroner Ed Winters was so determined not to put a cause of death was he was frustrated with the removal of Mitrice's remains from the scene. One, her remains were removed without the coroner's permission. However, and he states that the sheriff's deputies might have actually violated the law, and he stated it was undetermined the thoroughness of the coroner's undermined the thoroughness of the coroner's investigation, and that was because they prematurely moved the skeletal remains. But the excuse was that they removed the remains in a hurry because it was getting dark outside, and they worried that animals would tamper with the remains. Now, if it's skeletal remains, they've been there this long. What is going to hurt to wait until morning? If animals were going to tamper with these, they would have done it already. You can't tell me that there's not wildlife animals out there that are scavengers that already messed with this. They're not going to go after bones. Very few scavengers are going to do that. They want. So I understand why the coroner Winter was very frustrated with the sheriff's department. After her remains were found in August, and after the November speak out from the coroner's office, a small group of friends and family of Mitrice went to where the remains were found, and this is why I'm not very clear on if the coroner Winters public announcement was made before the friends and family visited the area of Mitrice, or if it was after. And it would make sense if it was after, because while the friends and family were at the site of where the remains were found, the chief, along with a few other of the family members and friends, they come across a finger bone. And the founder and forensic anthropologist from the Missing Persons Identification Resource Center described the situation as upsetting and distressing, which obviously it would be. I mean, if Mitrice is Mitrice's mother and she comes across a finger bone, it was later discovered that those were not the only bones that were missed. There was also, I will get to that in a little bit. So, in the process, I mean, along with the discovery of the body, or discovery of the bone of that, the found that forensic anthropologist Clea Cost stated that with the discovery of the bone, it immediately told them that despite the best efforts, the removal of the body on August 8th, 2010 may have been compromised by, or it may have compromised the investigation completely, which gets really aggravating down the timeline on here. So in December, after that is found, the chief requests that Mitrice's body, her remains, be exhumed and re-examined. Now, the Cross explains that the LA County Coroner's Office probably missed several things in their initial examination of the remains. So this is including hair evidence, which should have been compared to the hair found in the area where the remains were discovered. And they should have also examined Mitrice's teeth and the maggots that were found at the scene as well. And this is when the chief also requested the FBI finally get involved in Mitrice's case during its press conference. And once again, the FBI explains that they haven't received any information that justifies them to get involved. Even in January of 2011, Los Angeles County Sheriff requests that the FBI assist in the investigation, and the FBI declines doing that. And this was not just the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, it was the Los Angeles County Sheriff Lee Baca that wanted the FBI to assist. In Mitrice's case, but the FBI basically said they would be doing the same thing that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department had already done, and they would just basically be duplicating any work that the investigators had already done, so it was pointless for them to come in and do this. However, at some point, they do send Mitrice's remains to be examined by the FBI in the FBI headquarters in Virginia, because the FBI did agree to examine Mitrice's remains, but they were not going to go through and do a full investigation again. So, after the chief and the family members had found that bone of the finger, it was discovered that in a 4-hour frame of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department going back over the scene of where the remains were found, they became across more finger bone, a wrist bone, the neck bone, and ribs. Like I said, there was more. They basically, it was getting dark out and they did this in a hurry, so they missed all that. May of 2011, the chief filed another lawsuit against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. This is her second lawsuit filed, and this time she is filing as not just the negligence, but also as both intentional and negligent infliction of emotional distress, because they did leave that emotional distress on her. They left bone fragments at the site knowing that there was a chance that family was going to go to these sites, and it was the chief that found that first remaining bone that gave more to more bones being found. And with those bones being found, she, with the examination and having the remains sent to Virginia, when they came back, we were going to actually have a proper funeral for Mitrice, and they wanted to add the bones that had been retrieved later on in with the bones of Mitrice to begin with. Now, when she filed that second lawsuit, she filed the wrongful death and negligence with the responding officers that booked Mitrice that night. She informed them that they ignored her daughter's strange behavior and they didn't take any action to evaluate her mental state. All they did is they gave her a field sobriety test, which she passed. So somebody is acting that completely off, that there's 9 witnesses plus 2 officers that are going to notice that this young lady, this 24-year-old, ambitious, fun-loving, fun to be around woman is acting completely out of character, even though and she's in an area she doesn't know. They decide to book her instead of taking her maybe to a hospital where she could actually be evaluated to properly figure out that her state of mind probably had a lot to do with her being off of her bipolar medication. investigation. In August of 2011, the Los Angeles Board of Supervision finally does settle with Mitrice and Michael for a very good, a very decent settlement. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. I am not going to throw out a number there because nobody needs to know that. And this settlement was to be split between Mitrice and Michael, and they didn't immediately accept the offer. Eventually they did, but right at first they didn't. Now, in March of 2012, there was a review released of Mitrice's case, and it basically said that the department's permission to remove some of the remains before the authorities had found a full skeleton basically in more or less stated that there was probably before the coroner could actually state that there was a full skeleton, that there was a possibility of a cover-up somewhere along the line, and the allegations for the cover-up have a lot to do with the night that Mitrice was released from the sheriff, or from the Lost Hills station. There is apparently alleged footage of an officer that happened to be in the lobby with Mitrice, and moments after Mitrice left, oh, we have a kitty joining us. Hi, Backroad. Hi. That after Mitrice had left the sheriff, or the Lost Hills station, that this officer that was in the lobby with Mitrice, moments after Mitrice had left, this officer had gone out a side door, and was gone for about half an hour to 45 minutes, and then had come back in the side door. So that's where a cover-up comes from. But there's nothing stating who this officer was, where this officer went, what time they left, or it's just an allegation. It's not an actual stated fact. So by February of 2017, yes, we are jumping way into the future of the case, but in the past for us currently, there was a nearly year-long investigation into Mitrice's death and disappearance, and according to the Office of the Attorney General, they stated that there was no evidence of wrongdoing by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department deputies, and that there was insufficient evidence to support a criminal prosecution for destruction, alteration, or concealment of evidence. By the 10-year anniversary, and I'm not going to call it an anniversary, it is an anniversary. They had a memorial service and a press conference, and during the service, Sheriff Alex Villanueva, he stated that he wanted to assess the entire case again from the beginning with a whole new, fresh set of eyes. And he wanted to go back and canvass the area, do a complete walkthrough the entire length of it, only to basically be shot down. And he tends to do the same thing that Lee Baca did. He basically, he says he wants a new investigation, and then he backtracks and says he just wants to review it. So it's hard to say which one, does he really want to do a new investigation, or does he just want to go back and it's just going to frustrate me to keep talking about that. So I'm going to jump to October of that year. On October 12th, 2019, and I am probably going to get really heated on this because this is aggravating. There is a bill that is presented. It is called the Bill Senate 42. What this bill in cases is that it would require the county jails in California to allow those that are to be released in the middle of the night to stay until daylight hours if they choose, to provide a safe place to wait for a ride, and for a released inmate to charge a mobile phone while they're waiting after business hours. This bill ends up being vetoed by the legislation and also by Governor Gavin Newsom at the time it is presented. The reason for their veto is it states that the provision that allows the inmate to stay overnight after release would cause costly damages to local government and would require reimbursement by the state. So we don't want to cover the safety of people because it could cost us money, but in the end, we end up where we have people that go missing, end up dead, and whatnot, and we're worried because of the fact that it's going to require to have the costly damages of the local government, and it's going to require some reimbursement by the state. Geez, really? Come on, people. What happened to actually keeping people safe? In March of 2022, and this is why I kept bringing up the $10,000 reward, the reward ends up being increased and it's extended once again. It's increased by another $20,000, and it ends up bringing the total amount of the reward to $40,000. So I leave you with the case of Mitrice Richardson, a woman that life was cut way too short. Whether it was foul play that was involved, or if it just happened to be the circumstances of the area she was at and nature took its course. If you have any information about Mitrice Richardson, you can contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIP. Otherwise, just have a great day. You can reach out to me at any time at the website, or not website, the Gmail, Let's Tell Our Story at gmail.com, link below. The Facebook page, Let's Tell Our Story, and or Instagram, Let's Tell Our Story. If you have any suggestions on a case I should do, email it to me. Go for it. I will definitely look into it. And until next time, and if you watched the video, hit that subscribe button and tell us. Love you. Bye.